All right, folks. May 1st, if you can believe it. I can't. I'm still struggling to believe it's May. A lot has happened in our world, but we already know. So today, we are going to talk about being T-shaped. Lori Blue on Discord connected me with Agile Calendar there, so I'm hopeful that we get some of today coming in, asking questions, helping others out. So that should be nice. Good to see some of the folks that are always here via Agile. Good evening, good morning. I'm not sure what it is over there in Australia, but good to see you. I am working on more merchandise, specifically logo background go on shirts. That was a fantastic idea. So I'm working to make that happen. I am not the most graphically gifted person. Luckily, my wife is better at it than I am, so I've got a bit of help. So that's one of the things that I hope to. Okay. So T-shaped. This was something that was introduced to me. I'd say 7 or 8 years ago from actually Valve Software. People had mentioned it time ago, and actually in reference to Valve Software. So Valve Software, makers of Half-Life Portal, I think, a handful of other really good games. I'm sure I'll get corrected. Also, creators of, which is fantastic, fantastic moneymaker. They had a handbook joining Valve, and one of the key elements was a very useful illustration of what it meant. And I'll talk about what T-shirt meant to me. Uh-oh. Audio's dry. See, new mics, new things, trying it out. Got my, got a bunch of new things going on here. As we evolve the stream, there's a few issues. Let me check my filters. I've got a noise gate. Oh, I did make it worse. Did I make it worse? Oh, I was going the wrong way. I'm probably just really breaking everything right now. So hopefully it's not worse than it was before. Um, okay. So let me know if audio is better, worse, or the same, and I'll keep tweaking as we go. This is why the pros have an audio engineer helping them. Okay. So T-shaped. T-shaped, capital T, helpful in the visual. Oh, good. Okay, cool. Well, I futzed with it. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm moving levers, and it seems to be working. Okay, so back to T-shaped. Concept of T-shaped is that you have a broad set of skills. That's the top of the T. The stem of the T is that you have one area where you are really deeply talented. With the breadth in your T-shape, you can go lots of different areas, but you're not necessarily world class in that one specific region. But you are world class in that one skill. So maybe you're a database person. So your SQL skills are out of this world. You can jump into front end code, back end code, DevOps. You can do those things. It's not your best thing that you can do, but you can comfortably and confidently go in there and help. So what I try and do when I build team is build like a gate or a fence type team where the breadth across all of the team members, if you were to overlay them, they're all pretty similar in width. But when you line up all of their skills vertically, there's not a lot of overlap. There's a lot of folks that align next to each other. So then when you have a team built like that, and I've had some really fantastic teams that were built like that, they can really conquer anything at that point, because you throw anything at them, and there's likely someone that's world class in tackling that one issue. And they're surrounded by a group of people that are capable and willing to jump in and help and roll up their sleeves and figure it out, partnering with that expert. So there's a lot of folks that end up going in one of those directions. So they become deeply technical, deeply skilled in one area, but they're uncomfortable in traveling anywhere else and doing anything else. So, oh, I'm just a SQL person. I can handle the front end code. That's okay, but it really limits the usefulness you have to the team and to your team members. Then there are others that are really broad in their skill set, but really don't have any true depth in knowledge, to where when things get hard, that's someone that they can lean on of, hey, we're going to go figure this out. So I don't like to use the word generalist, because the generalist term, which gets thrown out a lot, is, hey, we're building a team of generalists. Well, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a complementary set of T-shaped team members. That's a mouthful. A complementary set of T-shaped members. Again, that's where you get that fence post. What Bob's in the house, and the first thing he does is throw barbs at me. So I will explain Bob's angst with me right now. Many, many moons ago, Bob and I, no babes. Although I did use the babe on him last night, and it was terribly uncomfortable. So we recorded an episode, the next episode of the Metacast last night, and I finally got to be the bad guy. There had been 2 episodes for the Metacast in which Waterfall Bob was the star of the show. And last night, the tables were turned. Last night, I got to be the bully. I got to be the bad guy. And I told Bob this a couple times, and you'll hear it when you listen to the episode, that my cheeks were hurting right here, because I was smiling from ear to ear. I should have been streaming while doing that. It was fantastic. I was a bully, just like Bob said, and I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy being a bully. I enjoyed being a bully to Bob. Bob, towards the end of the episode, asked how that felt. Did I enjoy that? And while I don't enjoy doing that, I enjoyed being able to give Bob a little bit of that medicine he had dished out to me a couple of times. So that was fun. That was fantastic. Bob is scarred for life, which is nice, because now he knows how I feel whenever anybody mentions Waterfall Bob. It's one of my least favorite, 45 minutes of the past decade. Very uncomfortable. Not a lot of fun. But when you're on the other side, it's fantastic. So I really do encourage, if anybody ever has a chance, corner Bob, make him uncomfortable, and just challenge him relentlessly. That was the best thing, was just not even blinking. Even when he had good points. There were some times where he had some tremendous points. He did a great job battling back against some of the ridiculous things I was saying. But even then, I still just nope. I hear you, but it doesn't matter. Let's see, Waterfall Bob. No, you don't need to hear Waterfall Bob. It was terrifying. And the first time Waterfall Bob came out, I was way less confident in my skills in dealing with things like that. So the first time that happened, it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, because not only in the moment was Bob browbeating me, but I knew that I was putting my responses out there in front of the world with the Metacast. And man, knowing these people oh man, this guy really doesn't know what he's doing. So it's out there. I think it's around episode 43 or something. Hey, look, Apple. Oh, I'll show 10 more episodes. Goodness gracious. So the latest episode that's out right now, we did a similar role play where Bob was again the bad guy. I felt like I did better this time, which I'm proud of. I would hope I'm better now than I was like 7 or 8 years ago. I'm going to be scrolling for a while, my friend. I did. I did do better, Bob. We're just scrolling and scrolling and I will find the episode. Somehow, there. Oh, I know. That first time was, like I said, it was hard because Bob does a really good job of being a jerk. You guys may have noticed that. Um, but I was ill equipped for that moment. Yeah, okay, so episode 42. I was close. Episode 42. Here I'll give you the podcast or there's the Apple podcast link. Yeah. So please don't judge me. Well, judge me, but judge me on how I've done then versus how I do now. Bob, that was a long, long time ago. My goodness. Bob, we've been doing this a long time, my friend. Okay, so Bob, one of the reasons we're talking about T-shaped was Lori Blue, always the marketing and content creation consultant for Kazi, threw out, hey, it might be good to talk about the T-shaped stuff because Bob just wrote an article about it. I think that's on your Agile Moose website. Nope, or that's just a LinkedIn. Was it just a LinkedIn post? Bob writes everywhere. Oh, there we go. Jeez, this is an aggressive episode today. Bob comes in calling me a bully, pushy in a steamroller. Agile Biker comes in swinging with eating Agile Mooses for breakfast. Gracious. All right, so T-shaped leaders. And bonus points to Bob for having a Mr. T image. I, I like this banter that's happening here. Mooses are gigantic. Have you ever seen them like charging through like 6 feet of snow? Like not slowed down at all. Just rolling through that snow. Chest high snow above our head. Not slowing them down at all. Agile Biker, I think you'd be. Yeah, so one of the things that we were talking about was building, I'm not going to be able to find the words again, a complementary set of team members whose depth in the T-shaped, in the stem and the team don't overlap. There could be some overlap, but you don't want all of the T's to be the same. You want a nice spread of T-shaped employees where there's complementary skills. That's where I've ended up having teams that I was confident that we could basically give them anything. Number one, they had the skills somewhere in their stems as you look at their fence posts. But two, one of the things that Bob talks about in his blog post is it creates this tremendous sense of teamwork because so often you are not dependent upon your teammates, but you have somebody to go to. You have someone that you know is an expert. Go and ask and sit down. And number one, they appreciate you trying to help. Number two, they know you're trying to help. Number three, they know you're willing and capable of helping. Who's slamming doors over there? Teenagers. So to me, that's why as a contributor, forget what level, forget where you are. I see no bad patterns that arise in being T-shaped. I can't come up with a single situation where that's a bad thing. Where I would look at a peer, an employee, a boss that's T-shaped and say, you know what, that's not useful. So I really do encourage everyone to find their thing, find their stem, strengthen it, grow it, learn how to share it. If you did lose your stem, it would be bad, Bob. You are correct. So while I'm wrapping up this T-shaped thing, let me know if there's any questions or problems people are wrestling with out there that we can help with. Yeah, that's what I was saying. You don't want to be the ultra generalist. You gotta have something that you can lean back on, that you are the specialist for. Hey, you gonna slam that door again? Oh, that's the same excuse your brother uses. You know he needs to have his windows open. He's a 13-year-old boy. It's, yeah, 13-year-old boys' rooms. Whew. Gotta get it aired out, my friends. It doesn't make sense. That's a great question. What other shapes are out there? I think, to me, they end up being like an underscore again, where Bob said the ultra generalist, where they can do a little bit of everything, but that's it, just a little bit. So when the tough gets going, or when you really have to go through and dig into something hard, because being an ultra generalist is fine when you're not tackling really tough problems. But when you get to really tough problems, which is what really good teams end up dealing with and what they thrive on, you need to be able to dig in and say, okay, I'm going to help figure this out, or hey, I've done this before. Let's rally around me and let's go figure this out. So there's the ultra generalist that when you get to a really tough problem, it's like, well, can't really help there. Then there's the I, where there is no breadth, where I do one thing, I do it really, really, really well, probably better than anybody, but that's all I can do. What good is that? I mean, that's good in those instances when you need it, but how often out of a year's worth of work do you really need that one truly specific skill? Then any other time that person's twiddling their thumbs, trying to like wait for something to land in their lap that, hey, I'm going to go take care of this. That doesn't build you a well-rounded, powerful team. Again, what I aspire to build is I aspire to build teams that you can give a complex problem and they're going to solve it. I've been able to build a handful of teams that do that, and those teams were built on the T-shaped principle. They didn't overlap. Sometimes they were close, but the stems were complementary. Agile biker, join the club, my friend. You've got depth though. I would, yeah. Maybe it's like a wagon wheel. You've got those spokes that go on the inside. Maybe that's what we are. Yes. Great question. Interviewing tips for T-shapes. So my traditional question. I've got it on my Kazi website, and I'll explain how this applies. Find that before I start talking. Holy cow, Scrum Sarge. 14 months. Scrum Sarge, before I talk any further, number one, thanks for being here for 14 months. Thanks for subscribing for 14 months. Thanks for jumping in and helping along the way. So I thank you and everybody that's helped make this a thing that I get excited to do every Friday, that I get excited to grow every Friday. Would not do it without you guys. Just wouldn't be enjoyable. So thank you tremendously. Fantastic to have you here. So it means a lot. Every sub means a lot. Thank you. Okay. Walter's Western Wear. So I created, if you scroll down below, depending on the app that you're in or how you're watching Twitch, below there's all the panels for Discord, About Me, Schedule, YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. The merchandise panel now links to Walter's Western Wear, which is the name I came up for the store. I do have a handful of products that are out there. I've gotten some fantastic recommendations from viewers on what to add. So my poultry graphic skills are working on that. I'm going to try and get a Walter shirt. I'm going to get more Metacast shirts without the blue background. That's a fantastic idea. Can't wait to get out there. So yeah, Walter's Western Wear. That's the name that popped up into my head when I was doing that. So we are like the big belt buckles. Oh my gosh. You got to share a picture of your collection at some point. Maybe in Discord you can put that. That'd be fantastic to see. I don't really collect the yeah. I don't collect things. I probably should. Man, on fire. We are definitely west of where Walter is originally from. Man. Now listen. I will get back to the interviewing for T-shaped. I once went to a SAFe class, and I went into it with a terribly closed mind because around that time, Bob and I were railing on SAFe in the Metacast. So I went in believing it was just a tremendous. No, you're fine. This is one of those things that's important. So I went in there with a tremendously closed mind and thought it was going to be a waste of 3 or 4 days of my life. And I walked out of there with big room planning. Now, I didn't take big room planning and do it exactly like they do, but I really appreciated and valued the concept of big room planning. I made it my own. I didn't take the classic SAFe approach. I made it my own, and we continually, on a monthly basis, update a forecast of the next 6 sprints. When we get really good at that, when we get to be a really mature team, a really mature product org, that gets done in about an hour and a half. So the team has an opportunity to see things that are coming at them. That's the thing that I value. They have an opportunity to understand the roadmap of where product is asking the team to take them. And the team has a chance to start to break things down, not just in refinement, because I find that so often teams do just-in-time refinement where they're refining last minute. Yet some of the harder, more complex things take time to think about, take time to understand, require significant spikes. So I find a tremendous amount of value of giving teams a chance to see things that are about a quarter out, put it in the back of their brain, and see and think and digest, how the heck are we going to solve that? We need to probably put a spike in about sprint +4, +4 meaning four sprints from now. So that way, when it's time for us to really refine that and break that down, we have a good idea of what's happening. So many teams that don't do something like that, it comes into refinement, and it's this scramble of it's this thing we've never done before. We've got to do a spike. Holy cow, how are we going to do that spike before we have that sprint? Or are we going to do a spike and then the work right after that in that same sprint? That's a bad plan. So that's where the real passion is for me around SAFe adding value. I think SAFe the business, which is what Bob and I have talked about a lot, SAFe the business is not something that we ever aspire to be a part of. But I got to catch up on what folks are saying. A SAFe skeptic. Wow. That's pretty crazy. So I would love to hear their argument about what doesn't work at scale. You might be thrown out. Yeah, and so from Sarge, my trainer was very similar. So he recognized that I had some agile chops, as Bob would say, and he operated in a very similar manner. He actually used me as some input along the way, just asking what I thought, how those things were sitting with me. It sounds like, unfortunately, Agile Biker doesn't have the same level of trainer as Scrum Sergeant I did. Yeah. So, oh man, throwing dudes under the bus. You know that the training is hard. Yeah, I've done trainings as a part of Kazi, and it's an interesting challenge. There are some folks that are really good at it, like the ones that Scrum Sarge and I both had were good at it. And then there are some that are. I found it's the trainers that are also practitioners have that grounded reality of, okay, here's how I've made it work, or here's some of the flaws that I've seen when trying to implement this. Yet there are some that haven't chosen to go down the path of practicing it. So then at that point, it's just, here's the rule book, we should follow it. Go. We all recognize that when you put things into practice in real life, that's when things get a little bit different, a little bit harder, and having that confidence of being able to stand up there and say, yes, I've actually done this. And here's where I saw the value, or here's where it broke down. I think you'll find that if you can get a trainer like Bob that is also a practitioner, then you have those great experiences that that trainer can lean on to help relay the value. Yep, Bob nailed it. It's the money. There's a ton of money in that training. A ton of money. It's a grind. I would have a really hard time doing it, but there's a ton of money. So people, again, that might be where Agile Biker's stuck, because it's someone that doesn't really believe in it, or again, to my view, hasn't practiced it. They don't have that real anchor to where the value is or isn't. They're just, again, they are reciting a script. And that's where that depth. So that's we go back to the generalist. So that's the ultra generalist of, I really don't have that depth. This is a great example. The trainers that Scrum Sergeant and I had were T-shaped. They had that understanding, but they had that depth. They had done it, and they could lean on that, and they could help us understand how we connect the things. Whereas it sounds like Agile Bikers trainer doesn't have that depth or that stem to be able to lean on. Agile Biker, you should have given me the money. I would have told you. Big room planning. I tell you what, Scrum Sarge, every once in a while, magic happens. Okay. I am not certified to issue a certification. So I understand. uh, I didn't know what Bob. I'm sticking with STEM. The base of the T, I don't know. I wanted to give it feel better about STEM. Don't give Bob credit. He's not trying to bring us back. Just bothered by a term. I know how this goes. I can see him there. that is correct. I'd spend so much time trying to reel him in, get him out of being lost in the woods. You're right, Agile Biker. You're right. Look at you with all these good references. Okay, so let's get back to interviewing for T-shaped. One of the reasons why I ask the question of architect a solution is that starts to show me their breadth. How much do they understand front to back? And there's varying degrees of expectation. So as a junior engineer coming out of school, expectations for your breadth is pretty narrow, right? I expect that T to be relatively narrow, and I'm okay with that. But if we're hiring you for a very senior role, I'm expecting the breadth of your T to be quite wide. And I expect you to be very comfortable talking front to back about how all of the things in the product you're building connect. So let me back up a little bit. What I do is I ask folks one of the things that they're passionate about. Video games, books, guitars. It's amazing how guitars is one of the very common answers of engineers that I've hired. Whatever it is, whatever the passion, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, you name it, I don't care. And I ask them to build a Amazon.com of that thing. And I'm a very wealthy investor. I'm hiring them to go build this thing. I found somebody that's passionate about the story I want to build, about the thing. So they really know about the topic. They understand that. So it's not out of left field. I don't know what I'm talking about. If I like guitars, then I can talk about guitars. I get excited. I get passionate. So that's the thing I like to see. I have them start to architect out a solution of what the website looks like. And depending on what we've talked about or what their resume says, I've got an idea of where their stem, yes, Bob, their stem of the T sits. Is it the database? Is it the middle tier? Is it the front end? Are they an architect? Right, what's that look like? So then I really start to lean in and ask questions on that one specific area. So if they're a front end person, I don't expect them to be able to architect a database in the most scalable way. But I do expect that their T shape is wide enough that they can talk about some of the basics there. They show me they have the concepts. They show me they understand. They have a general idea of how the middle tier is going to talk to it, and then how they're going to talk on the front end to that middle tier. Then I really press in deep on the area of their expertise of that stem and see how deep, how tall that stem really is. And one of the things that I do, that's my favorite part of the question, is when they're in their stem and they're talking and they're passionate and I know they're right, I disagree with them. And I tell them I think that approach is wrong. And the thing that I want to hear, and this is how you know how strong that stem is how they respond. If they're really experts, if their stem really is as tall as they think it is, then what they'll be able to do is say, okay, Josh, I hear you, but I actually disagree. Here's why this approach is the best. And they have the experience and the knowledge to back that up. And I say, oh, okay, cool. Got it. You're good. So that, well played, Agile Biker. That's how I find out the breadth, is I ask them to talk about the entire system. I don't need them to go in deep into all the areas where their stem isn't. I just want to know that they understand it, that they get the basics, that they can communicate with their partners that are in that team that do have stems in that area. Then there's the time where the front end, let's say that's their stem, is the thing that we got to ship. Let's make sure that they know that in a world-class manner. And I like to validate the world-class knowledge and experience by putting them in a difficult situation and seeing how they respond. If they really have that depth, they really have that experience, they're going to engage in a dialogue, try to understand why I think they're wrong, and then inform me why I'm actually the one that's wrong. So that's the approach that I take in trying to find out, is this person T-shaped? And if they're not perfectly T-shaped, that's okay. It at least informs me of, are they willing to be T-shaped? And maybe they haven't had the experience to expand their T the entire breadth of the application. That's okay. And again, for different levels and different roles, expectations are different. I enjoy this back and forth because I can't tell how sarcastic Bob is being. That's the one problem with this medium. Was Bob serious about that? Because I knew exactly what Agile Biker was doing, because he timed it well, because he knows this question. We've talked about this a lot. So I wasn't sure how serious Bob was. It sounds like Bob was serious. This actually happened in the episode recording last night, where Bob and I had a different understanding on a particular term. And I thought Bob meant one thing and he meant another thing. And we agreed, but we agreed in opposing directions. Oh man. Well, thank you for protecting me, Bob. It's always nice that someone has my back. Don't bring this empirical business back, Bob, or Agile Biker. I know. It's really hard to, I can tell when we're in person. I can tell even when we're not in person. Like last night when we were recording, we do it over Discord and handle it that way. I can tell by the tone of his voice the amount of sarcasm that is baked in and how much isn't. But in just text, I can't get it. Uh-huh. Confirmation from Scrum Sarge. Thank you, Scrum Sarge. Walters all around. Yeah. Oh, wait. Make sure we throw in some Texas Walters. Yeah, so I when I am looking for a full stack developer, I'm actually looking for a T-shaped person. That's my definition. There are some folks that are looking for a very tall, so they just want this like giant bar that goes across, where I'm world class at everything. That's not realistic. I'm sure there are people that are out there, but the likelihood of finding that is relatively low. I've had tremendous luck again in building that like a picket fence post where we all have complementary skills. So again, that breadth is what I look for when hiring a full stack engineer. Now, what I tend to do is I have stopped using the full stack name, because I am generally looking for somebody that has what I call a, people tend to lean towards the front end or lean towards the back end. They can likely go in both directions, but there's a preferred location, a preferred place to live. Like for me, it's the back end. I can make the front end work, but that's about it. And I like to have a partner that leans towards the front end. Again, trying to get the complementary skills. That's what I'm looking for. So when I think about a full stack developer, I actually think about a T-shaped person. But unfortunately, there are many folks that are looking for what I believe to be a unicorn, where there is no stem. It's just like a giant fat bar. And that seems difficult to find. So that's my interpretation. I'd like to hear what others have to say about that. Is it, Bob, when you say safe, what do you mean? See, again, sarcasm, you don't know. You mean that's safe? Maybe, who knows? You never know with that guy. Yeah, so that's my personal view when we talk about being T-shaped. That's how I view it. Again, I don't necessarily align with the way a lot of other folks hire. That's just my own personal preference of what I'm trying to hire. So there's that difference. The old agile hand washing. Be a release train. The train is the soap. I don't know what else you would do there. That is interesting. Yeah. There you go. That's a perfect question, Agile Biker. Ask them how they would do scaled agile hand washing. Teamwork. Okay, well, we spent like 45 minutes on T-shaped here. What other things can we help with? As usual, we got a fantastic group of folks that are here to help, here to answer questions, here to help you. But if you don't ask, no one can help. So reach out, ask a question. Or, I'm sad to say, dream will end. I feel like I've talked enough about being T-shaped. I've talked all the words. Getting past college degree requirement. So I'll tell you my journey hiring. When I first started hiring, I required a computer science degree. I felt that as a CS degree snob, as I referred to myself, that was the only way you could really be a good developer. Then in my second job, I worked for a person who was fantastic, Greg Waugh. He was amazing. I found out after working for him for like a year and a half, he didn't have a degree. He got a job in high school, started making good money, and asked the question, why would I go to school? There's no value in me spending this money. So that started opening my eyes to the very narrow-minded view that I had. And I started to pay attention to the really talented engineers and just ask them about their background. I spent more time understanding who these people were and understanding the diversity of journeys that existed to get into becoming a great engineer or a great software person. And in subsequent jobs, I was amazed at the crazy backgrounds people had. Not crazy as like crazy wild, but just the number of different ways people got to hear, from astrophysicists to lit majors to history majors to music majors. I found that it was relatively rare that of the engineers I held in the highest regard that they had the traditional CS degree background. And one of the best teams that I ever built, only 25% had a computer science degree, and only half had a degree. So over time, one of the things that I learned was that that really didn't matter. So my argument, John, is that if you're unable to get past the college degree requirement, in my view, and I want to preface this, in my view, they don't really understand what it means to be a great engineer. And that's not a company that again, this is just me, that I would want to work at, because they don't get it. They don't value the things that are really important. And often companies that hire like that hire with a checklist. It's hard to hire really good engineers with a checklist. That's the easy, lazy way to hire. And I don't want to work at a company that is lazy at hiring. I want to work at a company that is really serious about hiring the best people and understands what it takes to become a great engineer. And it is not a degree like that. Now, I was that person 20 years ago. So I was part of the problem. Luckily, I learned, but it wasn't like I sought that learning. I was shown that. I was shown, hey, here's an example of a fantastic engineer that didn't even go to school. So that opened my eyes. That made me stand up and look around like, hey, wait a minute, like maybe I'm the one that's wrong here. I just started to pay more and more attention. So I find that when companies hire like that, that's not a place I want to work. That's easy for me to say. Right now, in the world that we're living in, I've got a job. Right? It's a good company, and I'm hiring people for all the right reasons. And I understand that, but I understand today's world is slightly different. Number one, jobs are not as available as they used to be, given the crisis that we're in. So I understand that. And I understand that now competition is even higher, right? Because of so many people unfortunately lost their job. So the talent pool has grown, demand has gone up, supply has shrunk. So that creates problems and difficulties, and I understand that. So that's why being as aggressive as I am about those things might not make sense right now for everybody. Maybe the most important thing is having a job, being able to pay the bills, doing all those things. So that's where the traditional approach that I would take of I don't actually want to work there because that's not how I would hire. It might not be the right time to think like that. So you have to make decisions on how you want to handle that. But that's the approach that I take in a normal situation. Yeah, I'm sorry, John. Um, that is, and so the thing that I find is that HR needs to be informed by the hiring managers. I find that so many hiring managers invest very little time, effort, and energy into their recruiting arm. If the recruiting arm is the internal HR team, or if the recruiting arm is external vendors like Harold, who we talked about, one of the things I talked about is hiring managers really need to invest and ensure that they arm the recruiting arm, very redundant, with the things that are important to them. So if that hiring manager is telling the HR department computer science degree is a requirement then that's telling you what they're looking for. Unfortunately, that recruiting arm is asking, hey, what are the requirements? And people just like reflexively say things. Oh, they need a degree in this, they need a degree in that, or they need this many years of that. So then they take that and run with that. And that becomes the bar that unless you have these 5 things, I can check them off, you don't get to leap over the bar. You could take the Scrum Sarge approach. But yeah, that's a real, John, I get it. Like that's a real challenge. And as I said, I was that person. Resume would not have even, like, I would go to the education section and look at it, and if it didn't have what I was looking for, it went in the forget it pile. Terrible, terrible way to hire. That's what I did. I didn't have a chance to learn. Scrum Sarge. He's on fire today. Yeah, so John, John, that's why I do what I do. That's why I do this stream. That's why I do the podcast with Bob, in hopes that we can help make little changes across the world, across the country, that people start to think differently. They hear a different viewpoint, a different opinion on how things can be done. And just like me, so many, many years ago, probably close to 20 years ago, when I started working with Greg Wall, that I started to open my eyes and say, wait a minute, maybe this person's approach that's different than mine, maybe there's something I should take from that. So that's why I put so much time and effort and energy into doing things like this, because it's important to help folks like you in tough spots. And sometimes it's trying to help people that are hiring understand that maybe there's a tweak they could make that would make them more effective at the hiring. I'm sorry, Scrum Sarge. uh, I can understand the mindset that you're in. Wow. Agile Biker, once again, with the gut shot. So, for those of you that don't know, there was a time in my past when I had 2 really good candidates, one of which was Agile Biker, and I did not choose Agile Biker. So that's the gut punch he just gave me. And I can never argue that, right? Like that's the thing. Like Agile Biker brings that up, and I just have to take it. Like there's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can do besides, yep, you're right. You got me. Oh, you did, Agile Biker. Yes, it was. It was a very difficult decision. And I have explained repeatedly to Agile Biker the logic that was used to make the decision. Some may deem that logic accurate or inaccurate. It depends. But Agile Biker came out of nowhere and crushed the interview. And we were like, holy crap. What are we going to do? We've got 2 amazing options. So we chose. And I'll just say that we chose. Although Charles is a great hire. I would hire Charles again as well. Charles Rodriguez, who is now with, I think, Live Oak, the company in Wilmington that's hiring up all the former Dude employees. So if I had the chance, I would hire Agile Biker and Charles any day, anytime. And the thing that I've said, the thing that I lament, the mistake I made was I should have gone to battle and hired both of them. Again, I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't experienced enough to know that, hey, this is the thing I should go do. But that's what I should have done. Going back, if I could have done it differently, then I would have gone to battle, gotten another opening for a position that was going to happen in the not too distant future, and just do it now. That's the thing I should have done. That's the thing that haunts me. Of that's what I should have done. To have both those guys within our organization would have been amazing. Could have just like retired right then. Like, dudes, I'm out. These guys got it. So, okay. Well, thank you everyone for the stream. Thank you, Scrum Sarge, for the 14 months. That is amazing. I appreciate everybody coming in, hanging out. The sarcasm is wonderful. Keep bringing it. That's what makes it fun. Puts a smile on my face. Take care of everybody, and have a boring weekend. I can't end it any better than that. So we'll just end on have a boring weekend. See everyone.